the other option would be to, let me take my outline off, and I've taken outline or any effect off by going to no outline or no fill. So shape fill, no fill. So we're back to where we started. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to use a dark background. Use dark blue. Dark blue. And I'm going to change my text color to a contrasting color. Now, you could use white. Now, my text options aren't there. I'm going to go to home to do that like I normally would. My text options, I could use white, and that works. But I tend to find with these dark colours, best colour for contrast is actually this bright yellow. That makes it really pop out. And because this is a beach sports thing, you want something that's a bit lively, you know. So I've got a blue background, yellow text. That stands out quite nicely. As an additional thing, we can also, if you want to be extra clever, is we've selected the object. Instead of just picking a colour for the background, go to shape format. Instead of just picking one of these colours, what I could do is I could use the eyedropper to pick up a colour from somewhere else on the page. And I'm going to grab this blue from here. So if I click on that, it will change that to match. And similarly, I'm going to change my text colour. I need to go back to home for that. I'm going to change my text colour. I'm going to use the eyedropper and I'm going to pick up this sort of yellowy green colour they're using here. And that gives me some sort of consistency. There you go. Between the two. I'm not happy with that. I'm going to go back to my original yellow, I think. But you can use that to match your logos. I think that's got more impact doing it that way. Okay, so we've finished the tile slide. We've got a tile that stands out. In fact, I'm going to add a border to that because it's a middling colour. Quickly add an outline. And I'm going to use the eyedropper. I'm going to pick up this red-orange colour they use here as my border. I can set the side, the outline thickness, but I think that works quite well. And it kind of links back to the logo, so it works quite well. So that's shown you how to create your tile slide. Next, we're going to start creating the actual slides. And the temptation is to go, oh, well, we need 3 more slides, so create 3 slides. We're not going to do it that way. I'm going to show you an easier way to do it for the exam. So before we move on, let's quickly go back to the question. Just check we've done everything there. It's got a title slide. It's got the logo. I'm just checking here that it doesn't say I need an image on the logo on the title slide. So 2 other suitable images, 3, and the image we found. So that's 3 images. We've got 4 slides. So I'm assuming we're going to put 1 image on each of the other slides. So we're good to go. To add a new page, there are several ways of doing it, and some of the videos on the VLE will show you other ways. For the exam, this is the way I do it. Just right-click and insert a new slide. And that inserts the most basic layout imaginable, really. Now, in terms of layout, I tend towards using the same sort of layout because it works, and I'll demonstrate that as we go. It basically consists of having a text box about that size, maybe a little bit bigger, having a text box there, and then we're going to put a picture in here. You could swap that round and have the text box over here if you want, and the picture here. It doesn't matter. The reason I do this is because it does help you to use the space as much as possible. You don't end up with big white areas on the slide, which is something they're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to just undo all those changes. And if I wanted to get rid of that slide, I could just right click and delete slide. I'll just add a new one in. There. So now we're ready to start our slides. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to put the title of the slide in. So let's find that. I've gone back to my text file. And it says special offer. The first line is usually going to be the title, so I'm going to assume that's the title. Copy and paste that in, and do the same for my text. I'm going to select all of that text. Be careful not to select the blank line underneath or above as well. You notice I've got this cursor here. If I click and drag there, it'll include an empty line in my text. I don't want that. So I go to the end of the text and then drag to the beginning. Okay, I'm going to paste that in there. I'm not too worried about what this looks like at the moment, and I'll show you why in a sec. I'm going to just adjust this over a bit so it's about there. And I'm going to move it so it takes up a bit more space on the screen now. Okay. Now, I put quite a lot of effort into formatting this box here, so I want to recreate that. I could go and manually check what colours are used and what settings are used, but there's a quicker way of doing this. If I just make sure I've got nothing selected, I'm going to go back to the title slide. I'm going to select that text object, that text box, and then I'm going to use this Format Painter on the Home tab. I'm going to use this Format Painter feature, and what that does is it just copies the formatting from one object to another. So I've got this selected. I'm not in the text, I'm just selected the object. Click on Format Painter. Doesn't seem to do anything. But if we click on our slide and then click where the text is here, it brings over the formatting from that other box. Now, it told us in the question, we go back and check, I think it said we need a logo on each page. So let's have a quick look. The logo needs to be on all slides. Now, obviously, I can't put the logo in the middle like I did on the head on the title slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make space over here. I'm just going to drag that by that side handle. Just make space there for my logo. I can copy and paste that in. I can also, because I can see the presentation in the background and I can see the logo, I can just drag and drop that in. And it just plonks it in the middle of the presentation. Get rid of this. Now, I want to put that level with the top of that text box and approximately the same distance apart from the edge of the slide as this side. So that's about right. And I want to resize it, but I want this corner to stay where it is. So I'm going to grab the opposite corner, move that. And as I move it up, you'll see this dotted line up here. That means it's lined up with the box next to it. But the box is still a bit overlapping. We mustn't have things overlapping in the presentation. You will always get marked down. If you've got things overlapping, then it's not good. Okay, so we've got a logo and a tile. Now we've got some text here. I want to change this text as well to match the text I used on the title slide, but I can't remember what it was. So I've selected my text. I'm going to go to my fonts and you'll see it's got my recently used fonts. So I'm going to select Arial Rounded, which is what I used. And I also made it italic. And I think, let's have a quick look. I think I might change the colour of that as well. I'm going to change that to, I don't know, dark blue, I think. Yeah, that looks better. So I'm going to just select all of my text there. And it's quite important that we get this first slide right, because we're going to use this as a template for the next slide. So always check to make sure this makes the text you've pasted in makes sense. So we've got, do you like sailing? Do you like surfing? Windsurfing, also called board sailing, might be the sport for you. Okay, that's a valid point. You notice it's got a full stop at the end. You don't have full stops at the end of sentences in bullet points, so we get rid of that. Can you surf? Are you an excellent kite flyer? Kiteboarding, also called kite surfing, may be a sport for you. Again, get rid of the full stop. Sometimes the text will just be like a paragraph and you have to break it up yourself into sentences. So you might have a whole block of text and you need to just go to the full stop, press return and delete it to create a new line with a new bullet point. Do you have excellent balance and water endurance? Water skiing could be the sport for you. And then the last line is take a trial session for only £10. Well, that's something we want to advertise. We want to advertise our services. So I'm going to actually make that more prominent, make it stand out a bit more. I'm going to change that colour to red. I'm going to line it up in the middle and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Now, what size text have we got? We've got 28, which is a reasonable size. Generally, you don't, let's get rid of that full stop. Generally, you don't want text to be smaller than 24 on a presentation. There are exceptions, but generally it's going to be 24. That doesn't include your footer, by the way. Your footer doesn't have to stick to that rule. Okay, so we've got that. And what I'm looking for in this is any important information, things like dates, prices, offers, directions, that sort of thing that are important for people to spot. And we want to make them stand out. This take a trial session, I could have taken that text out and put it into its own box. For example, I'm going to do that just to show you. I'm going to cut that, make that a bit smaller. Now I've got that text copied. I'm going to paste it. And it's pasted a new text box over the top. Oh no, Now, see what happened there? It actually overwrote the text that I had. And when I said about clicking on the grey area when you're pasting, that's why. Because I had something selected, it replaced it. So now if I do it, there you go. It's now pasted it. But I had to click off the presentation first for that to work. So, okay. Now, I don't know if you notice, so when I'm resizing the box, it doesn't resize because the text size needs to change first. So I'm going to make that a bit bigger. Okay, and now it looks pretty much the same as it did before, except now because it's in its own text object, I can apply formatting to that. So I can go to my shape format, change the outline, and maybe put a border on it. Something like that, or maybe change the background color. So that makes it stand out a little bit more. I could, if it's an offer, I might be able to get away with doing things like a dashed border. So it looks like a coupon or a voucher. So that might be a way of doing that. And that makes that really stand out. You don't have to do it that way. But each of these little things you can do, if you do them, it's a potential for the marker to give you a mark. So, and it also fills up a bit of space. So it looks quite good. Okay, so I'm going to do the next thing is I need a picture to put in there, an image. So let's have a look at my images. Now the important thing is what's this talking about? It's got things like windsurfing, kite flying, water skiing. So it's got a few things out. The thing I can see in there, sailing, surfing, windsurfing. I'm going to put the kayaking in there. Water skiing. I don't know. What should we put in there? I'm going to put my windsurfer. I'll tell you what I'm going to put in now. I'm going to put in my picture of my windsurfer. I can try that. This is the document I created in the first question, or using the first question with my image that I found. I'm going to copy that from there. Make sure nothing's selected. Paste my picture in. And I'm going to put that over here. Now what I'm looking to do is try and get a gap between here and here to be roughly the same as that. And generally, if I move this around, you'll see that that horizontal line. That just shows it's lined up with that text box, which isn't a very good guide at this point. But I'm just going to do it by eye. Now when I resize this, I drag it from the corner. You notice it actually distorts as I'm doing it. I do not want that to happen. Definitely don't want that to happen. So if that ever happens, just hold down the Shift key while you resize and it will stop it from going out of shape. I want to leave a little bit of space between this and this. So between the text and the picture. So I've got it roughly right. Let's have a quick shift. There we go. We're going to put that about there. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is balance these empty spaces so it doesn't look like I've got, if I do it down here, for instance, I've got this big white area here and I could potentially get marked down. So I'm just looking to balance that a bit. Okay, so I've got a picture in there. It's appropriate because it's got windsurfing in there. I'm going to put a border on here as well. I'm going to, so I've selected my picture object and you can see I've got a picture format option come up here. We've got things like picture styles here. I tend not to use these for the exam because you can get marked down for them. So I just use a simple picture border. And you notice I've got here the recent colours that I used. So these are the colours that aren't on this normal theme colour. These are the ones I picked up to match my logo. So I can use these again. I'm going to just pick up the brown and set that as a colour. It's not very obvious that it's there, so I'm going to select that. I'm going to now change the border weight. So if I change the border a bit, there you go. There we are. Okay, and it's important you do put a border on, especially if you've got pictures with white background. Because if they've got a white background, you might have an object on a white background It just makes it look really tiny, but it's actually bigger, and you can hide some of the white space by putting a border on it. Okay, so I think we've got everything on there. We've got our text, which is broken down. We've taken out our full stops. We've highlighted the important information. We've got a consistent header there, and we've got a picture in there. So I think we're ready to move on to doing the next slide.